You have an idea. You want to tell it to the world, but you don't know where to start. That's where Anchor comes in. They have the tools for you to edit, produce, and record your idea right from your phone or computer. It's the easiest way to reach and grow your audience. They publish for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. And to top it all off, they match you with advertisers so you can earn from your passion and your wonderful idea. So tell me, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and follow your dream. You're listening to Disruptive Adventism, a podcast about community, conversation, and conflict, where your ideas, traditions, and practices can be analyzed and changed. My name is Jose Briones, and I invite you to listen, to learn, and to live a life of purpose and disruption. Welcome everyone to Disruptive Adventism. Today we're going to be talking about multigrade classrooms. So we have a special guest here and a teacher of the Seventh-day Adventist Church with us, and her name is Monica Nudd. How's it going, Monica?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being willing to talk about this very important topic. So before we start, let's get to know you a little bit more. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been a teacher for 12 years in 4 different states. I currently live in South Bend, Indiana, and I got my master's degree from University of Maryland in curriculum and instruction with the emphasis in mathematics and leadership.
Okay, cool. And you have been a teacher in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, as I know.
Yes.
And what's your experience in the church or in the church schools?
So I've taught in anywhere from pre-K to 8th grade. I've taught in multi-grade classrooms as well as single-grade classrooms. In small schools where there's 3 teachers, and larger schools where there's 6 or 7 teachers. So I've been in a lot of different places in terms of the country as well as the Adventist school system. So I've experienced a lot of different things. I've taught 4 grades. I've taught 9 grades in one classroom, and I've taught just 1 grade. So I've experienced it all.
So since you've experienced a little bit between single grade and multi-grade, can you give me a little bit of the rundown? What's the experience in the classroom as a teacher?
Yeah, sure. So a multi-grade classroom where you have typically two or more grades in one room. The teacher does a lot more planning. They have to organize what they teach so that it's typically done on a 4-year cycle if they're in a classroom that has 4 grades, so that within 4 years they will cover the entire curriculum for all 4 grades. So they have to organize things so that all the standards are still met. And so it does take a lot of more planning, but I prefer it because typically in a multi-grade classroom you have a smaller class size. So instead of having 24 to 30 students, you have 10 to 18 students. And when you have a smaller class size, you can get to know your students more on a one-to-one basis and really challenge them wherever their needs are.
When it comes to multi-grade, I also understand that there are a lot of kids that may be from different ages. You mentioned that you have been a teacher of 4 grades at one time. What were those grades?
So I taught grades 1 to 4, and then I also taught kindergarten through 8th grade.
In one classroom?
Yes.
Wow. That's a big span of ages right there.
That is. It's a huge span.
Tell me a little bit more about that. K through 8.
K through 8.
How many students do you have? And what were some of the interactions that you saw?
Yeah, so I had 19 students, and I did have a teacher's aide. that year. And so my kindergartners were 5 years old and my 8th graders were 13, 14 years old. And the 8th graders loved the kindergartners. You know, they doted on them like they were their own siblings. So it was a good experience. It was a lot of work for me, the teacher, but I would do it again just because it's a wonderful opportunity to be in a learning environment where everybody's voice is important and everybody is on a different level, and that's okay. So you have children who may not be on grade level in whatever classroom that you go into as a teacher. So your challenge is to help them and encourage them to go forward wherever they are. And so to be in a space where it's not very important, you know, what grade you're in, what's important is that you're learning. And I think that's what multigrade really does that most people don't realize.
I remember being young when I skipped a grade. So I was in a different kind of, I was in a Catholic school at this time. And, I was the youngest. I was probably two years behind, quote unquote, behind. But a little bit of what I'm trying to understand is like, for me, my experience wasn't necessarily negative, but I was socially behind. Academically, I was fine. You know, I understood the concepts and I was catching up with everybody. But socially, it was a little bit awkward. It was a little bit difficult. When I think about multigrade classrooms, I think about that dynamic. And multigrade classrooms doesn't just happen in the Adventist church. Like,
not at all.
It's something that happens at the public system at large as well.
Correct.
But is this interaction like, should everyone be on the same page? Is there a value in uniformity? Or is this diversity that you're speaking of more positive per se?
That's a good question. I love diversity and I value it above uniformity. And I guess an example would be in children in general. When a child begins to walk, they don't all walk at the same age, nor do they all begin talking at the same age. And it's not that one is really behind. It's just that they develop at a different time. And one may get a tooth when they're 5 months old and another might not get their tooth until they're 12 months old. And again, there's nothing wrong with either of the children. It's just they're developing at a different time. And I love that multigrade classrooms allow students to develop whenever they are going to, and it's not a pressure as much as, oh, you have to be doing this at this time because all the other 4th graders are doing this at this specific time and this date. And it's just not reality that we live in.
That can also be discouraging. As a teacher, I can see that one of my 4th graders is doing very well. Yeah. He's understanding everything. Yeah. And maybe another one is not. And I think that can discourage teachers and maybe students. What I'm trying to gather here is like you're talking about it from a very positive perspective. And I definitely think that there's a value in this diversity.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to say that single versus multigrade. I guess it's just a different environment completely, you know, from a teacher's perspective. But let's talk about maybe a little bit of, you know, why is it so unique within the Adventist church? Because there's a lot of multigrade schools in the Adventist church.
There are.
More than Christian schools at large.
Yes. So
why is it that Adventists prefer Adventist or multigrade classrooms?
So I would say Adventists typically have multigrade classrooms because of class size and just the quantity of students attending schools. Because it is more cost effective to have one teacher for 18 to 20 students rather than one teacher per grade, because many of our Adventist schools are small schools, so they have a smaller student population. So they're trying to make a budget that is
maximize
that everybody can afford. So I think that's the primary reason that our schools typically have multi-grade. But there are some Adventist schools who value multi-grade. So no matter the numbers, they still have combination rooms, which are at least 2 grades in one classroom. So I think that stems from the fact that in Adventist education, we value the whole child. So we put emphasis not just on academics. We care about their social and emotional learning and their physical learning and their spiritual learning as well. So when we look at the child, not just as a specific number on a standardized test, we value the whole person, and we want to teach to that whole child and what is the best environment for that to take place. Multi-grade seems to be the best for that.
When it comes to being multi-grade, I will also think that the teacher has to be very creative.
Definitely.
What are some of the techniques that you have used in the past to, kind of attend to everyone at the same time?
Well, it's definitely difficult, but I love letting the older kids be the leaders in a multi-grade room, and having reading buddies where the older kids will pick a younger kid or switch it around and the younger kids pick an older buddy to read with. It's really helpful for both ages to be the listener or the reader, and to aspire to be better than where they are is really great. And those kids who are maybe a little hesitant to read because that's not their strength. They're more comfortable to read when it's not their peer. It's somebody who loves what they're doing, no matter how good a reader they are, because they're younger. So, and other creative ways can be just different groupings of students. Most teachers do this, even in single grade rooms where they group them according to their ability. It's also fun to group them according to what their interests are. So you can have different ages according to what their choice is, in terms of how they want to present their project or who they want to work with that day. So it does require creativity, and that's what makes teaching fun. A lot of teachers are creative, and that's what makes working in a Christian environment great, because you do have that opportunity to be creative, where I fear that many public schools are stifling that creativity because everyone has to do this on this day, and everyone has to give that for homework because that's what everybody's doing.
So maybe that's a pro for Christian education at large, that there's less or there's more flexibility per se. Now, talking about Christian education, let's kind of see it at large, and Adventist education in particular.
Sure.
Adventist education belongs to the Christian education family.
Right.
But we have our uniqueness about it. So why is it that Adventist education is unique per se?
It is unique in that we're a worldwide organization. We have schools all across the world, not just in the United States and North America. So it's unique in that it stretches so far and so wide, and yet it still exists. We're the largest school system, only second to the Catholic system. And yet we still exist. So that's pretty amazing. Remind me what your question was.
Why is Adventist education unique?
Unique.
What sets us apart?
So I think again, it's valuing the whole child and not just focusing on the academics. And, although those are quite important, and we value high academic standards, our purpose is to educate our students for eternity. So we want to equip them with the skills that they need to be successful in this world, but also to prepare them for the world to come. So we want to train them to have morals and values and to be good citizens, to be ready to work, but also to have empathy and to be of service to those in the community. So many of our schools do outreach projects in the community, which makes us unique. And it teaches our students that to look again outside themselves. School isn't just about making the grades or just about passing that test. It's about learning together and working together, and how can we make a difference in the world.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good. Another topic that I know you're passionate about is project-based learning. But a lot of people may not know what that is. And could you explain a little bit more? And how does that work maybe for someone that's listening and that, oh, I'm a teacher, and how can I make it work in my classroom? What is it and how can I make it work?
Sure. So project-based learning is one of a newer teaching method, I would say, in the last 10 years. It's become very popular. And it is basically asking a question or it's giving the students the option of choice when it comes to proving that they know what they know. So an example would be if you have, let's say, everything in the classroom. Let's say there's a typical third grade classroom would have popsicle sticks, construction paper, scissors, glue, erasers, pencils, things of that nature. And you say, okay, I'm going to give everybody a marble, and I want you to work in groups of 4, and each group with their marble has to move the marble from the table to a cup without touching the marble. So they have to use whatever they can in the classroom to get that marble into the cup. So the project for them is to work together in groups. They have to design something. And typically the project would include, okay, they have to draw out what they're going to make before they do it. They have to decide as a group which one they're going to make, and then they actually make it. And does it work? Doesn't it? Maybe they have to go back and change something or whatever. So that's just one example of a quick project that could be done for a science class. And that class would teach them, would be the beginnings of simple machines. So it's a topic that many students in 4th grade would have to learn, and they could read about it in their textbook and forget it the next day, or they could do a project and then learn through doing. So project-based learning is hands-on doing things and being very creative and allowing kids to make mistakes, allowing them to fail, but then having them have the opportunity to recreate or build upon what they may have made a mistake on.
So it seems like it's kind of like the idea of letting them experiment with what they're learning and see what the results are.
Correct.
Going from there. Okay. Well, I think I like that. I mean, that's a very different approach.
It is.
I remember being in school and my project was pretty much my homework. Yeah. Not necessarily doing something with or learning something about physics or learning something about chemistry or biology or whatever, the topic it is. So.
Right. And I mean, it's not just a science thing. It can be done for history or math. I've seen projects in math, and many of these projects have already been designed. So if you are a teacher and you're interested in, just look up project-based learning, and you can type in what grade you're interested in or grade levels, and there's some that are already made, and there are rubrics to go with them in order for you to grade them. So it's an exciting, different way of teaching that allows the teacher to be more of a facilitator and roam around the room instead of being the primary lecturer person.
Source of knowledge, or per se. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, as a teacher, I'm pretty sure that you have hit roadblocks or points or places where you were frustrated. Can you tell me a little bit more about how do you overcome them? I'm pretty sure that we may have at least one teacher listening that is like, I am there. I am at a roadblock. I am having a problem. what can I do to get help? Maybe I am not finding help in my community, or I don't know how it works. So go ahead and tell us.
I would say take a break. Like personal days, even though they're very few, like you need to take your personal days. You need to, even if you need to take a sick day as a mental health day, take a sick day as a mental health day, because you don't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of your students. And many teachers get burned out. It's just an exhausting career that you do so much planning, and then you have to present, but then you have to grade papers and prepare for the next day. So many teachers, especially in Christian schools, are working 6 and 7 days a week because they have to do a church presentation or a fundraising event on the weekends. So I would say the major roadblock that teachers get to is they're exhausted and they feel alone. So if there is somebody that you can call or send a message via social media, reach out to somebody who you trust to talk to, a fellow teacher, because that's really encouraging. But also make sure you're taking time. Go on your long weekends and don't grade papers. Just don't take them with you.
Well, those are definitely helpful tips that maybe some teachers can learn. And I mean, I guess it's definitely kind of hard to take that mental block. It's just like, I don't want to take my personal day for, my exhaustion. I just want to do it for vacation or things like that. But I guess when you are working and when you are definitely healthier mentally and physically, I guess that really helps and translates into the classroom.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, one more area that I guess we can go into as we start closing out the podcast is, why did you choose to be an Adventist educator? And instead of, we may have different teachers. Some people go into public school, some people go into Adventist school, but some others choose to stay. And as you share in your introduction a little bit, that you chose Adventist education. So why did you do that?
So originally I chose Adventist education because I wanted to give back. I wanted to work in a place where I could pray aloud with my students and to share my faith. But I didn't think I would stay in Adventist education. I thought I would teach for a few years as a mission, because Adventist teachers don't make what public school teachers do. But I didn't think I would make a career out of Adventist education. It wasn't until I did my master's that I realized the limitations that public school teachers have. I was in a cohort of, there were maybe about 15 teachers who we went through our master's program together at University of Maryland. And so for 2 years, we did all of our coursework together and got to know each other very well and shared our experiences and our struggles and our what we look forward to. And I learned a lot about public school from the eyes of my colleagues. And I realized that I didn't want to have my creativity stifled by the standardized tests and by, I have to be on this page because all the other fourth grade teachers at the school are on this page, and I have to send that homework home because everyone else is doing it, not because what's best for the students. Mm-hmm. So I value the part of Adventist education that allows the flexibility, allows the teachers to be the professionals to decide what is best for their students and to do that instead of sticking to what is mandated by state legislators and politicians who don't know anything about education.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think that we've learned a little bit more about multigrade, and as we're starting, we're continuing this series on education. We're trying to explore the different avenues of education. So thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for being able to be recorded and to share your thoughts when it comes to teaching. As it is our tradition, we like to give our final word to our guest. So tell us, what's the final word on multigrade or education as a whole?
The final word is that Adventist education is more than just multigrade. It is a whole atmosphere of Christian warmth and love that they receive from Christian role models, their teachers, and throughout the whole school day, not just in Bible class, but in science class and math class, history class, it's always being related back to Christ and the Bible. So the children are really getting a whole perspective from a worldview of there's one God, and the Bible is the standard that we can rely on. And it's an awesome experience to be in a multi-grade classroom. And I want to encourage all the parents out there. We want our children to be in heaven no matter what. And Adventist education is one of the avenues that we can place our children in an atmosphere where they have biblical role models. And it's a daily walk where they're learning Bible songs, they're memorizing scripture, and they're having whole school chapels and assemblies. And throughout the whole day, the music is all wrapped around Christ. And as a parent, I'd go and do anything to make sure my children would be in heaven. And I want to encourage all of the parents out there to consider Adventist education as one avenue that may help your child decide to follow Christ for the rest of their life. And it is a commitment for people to choose Adventist education, but the rewards can be eternal. So choose Adventist education.
You've been listening to Disruptive Adventism. We hope that today's topic helped you to think and change something about your practices, about your faith, about your Adventism. If you want to subscribe, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast. We'll be there. And make sure to give us a review if you like what you're listening to. If you want to support, make sure to go to patreon.com/disruptiveadventism. It helps us pay our bills and produce the content that you're listening to. And if you want to socialize, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram or on Twitter, and hit us up whenever you need anything. We'll be there to support you. Thank you for listening today. We hope you join us next time. And as always, we invite you to be disruptive.